Okay, once again, welcome to the Sheffield Sunday As Bill Sees It meeting. This is a main chair meeting, and today it's with much gratitude that we're welcoming Robi all the way from New Jersey, who's come to share for around 40 minutes, after which we'll open up for sharing, or you can ask a question. So with that, Robi, it's over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. I couldn't unmute. Thank you so much, Jan. Thank you for asking me to speak. It's so good to be here. My name is Robi S, and I am an alcoholic. I forgot we're being recorded. And I love this meeting. I don't always wake up early enough to get to it, but I love this meeting, and I appreciate all the service that you do for this meeting and so many other ways that you show up in AA Young. So thank you so much. So I have like two readings that I like in As Bill Sees It, and I use them all the time. And I felt like I needed to do something different. So I literally opened the book yesterday, and this is what happened. It was 2:43. And I really like it. So I really like the opportunity to speak on step 11. And particularly on the section on awakening. Just want to say that step 11 is really important to me. The latter steps 10, 11, and 12 are really important to me. And while I love the on awakening part, step 11 really starts at night. It starts when we retire, and then it goes to on awakening. So I have my sponsees and myself, I actually read or listen every morning, starting from the top of page 83, where it says, yes, there is a long period of reconstruction ahead. So I read from there till the end of the chapter into action. And I just want to say that what got me to the place of being able to practice step 11 was a lot of work on the first 10 steps leading up to that, or really the first 9 steps. So I'll just very briefly, like 1 minute, tell you what got me there. My sobriety date is the 1st of January, 1986. That just makes me old. And I'm so grateful. And I don't mind saying how old I am because I don't look it. That's the only reason. So as long as I continue to age well, I will continue to let you know how old I am, and then I will lie. I promise. So I promise I will get to that point in my life. I was 21 years old when I came into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't get sober at my first meeting. My first meeting was September 5th, 1985, a little over 39 years ago. And I was 29, and I just turned 60. Right? Crazy. Like, if you stay around long enough, you live. I wasn't planning to live beyond 25. So this is an incredible miracle. And my sobriety date's the 1st of January, 1986, which is a whole other story. And it wasn't a New Year's resolution, but you can hear me speak at some other meeting if you want to hear about that. And my first beginning of my sobriety, I was willing to do anything. I would have stood on my head naked with carrots coming out of my ears. It didn't matter what you told me to do. I would have done anything to not feel the way I was feeling. It was so unbearable. And I'm smart, and I say that because it didn't help me. Sorry, we have somebody joining us. We have 2 little babies here. This is Cookies. Yes, I know, they love you. I'm smart, and it didn't help me. But I memorized the steps, and I tried to do them. And trying to do the steps without any directions doesn't really work, but it was better than trying to not do the steps. You know, it definitely got me to a better place. The problem for me was that I did the steps pretty much every which way that was presented to me until I was a very dry alcoholic at almost 7 years of sobriety. And I was living in Boston. I'm born in New York, grew up in New Jersey. I ended up in Boston for graduate school. I was living in Boston, and I literally wandered into a meeting on a Friday night with a sponsee of mine in another program. That was what was called the Big Book Step Study meeting, based on the Hyannis method, which is a method that is used in Hyannis, Massachusetts. And this man, who ended up being a really amazing friend of mine, was speaking on step 4. His name was Jack Marine. He passed away about 7 years ago. And he said, if you haven't made amends to your mother, you're going to drink again. And my mother didn't know my address. I was not practicing steps 10, 11, and 12. I was practicing, I'm a recovering victim. I was practicing that if what had happened to you had happened to me, you would act like me. I really believed in almost 7 years of sobriety that it was the rest of the world that was the problem and I wasn't. And I was blessed to have a sponsor who was loving and clear and straight. And we worked the steps exactly as they're laid out in the big book. And what happened for me was that I spent every day writing for at least an hour. And what I didn't know was that that hour was preparation for step 11. That hour was preparation for my being able to sit and be peaceful and really, really hear God. And I didn't know that because I thought that I was okay. I thought I was hearing God, you know, but like, this is really specific. I still follow these directions. I don't embellish. On awakening, let us think about the 24 hours ahead. Just think. We ask God what to direct our thinking, especially that asking that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motives. I have to ask things like, please remove my anxiety. Please remove my obsession. I got an email on Friday that I literally this morning was praying, God, please just let me not think about this email until tomorrow when I have the work meeting. It's not even a big deal, but the way my mind works as an alcoholic who is recovered from a hopeless condition of mind and body, who needs to continue to do a lot of work in order to live in the solution. I have to do a lot of work to get to the starting line of life. You know, I don't know what other people who aren't alcoholic have to do, but I have to do a lot of work to be calm, to be peaceful, to keep my mouth shut, to practice the pause, to look for the and instead of the but, but wait, and, I feel this way, and how do you feel? It's really hard. Like this adulting, living life on life's terms thing, it's not what I signed up for. Okay. It really isn't, but what I signed up for was absolutely an unrealistic fairy tale that doesn't exist in this world. So I'm just going to backtrack back to 1992 and 1993 when I was writing this 4th step. I sat every day and I got on my knees in the morning and I said the 3rd step prayer. I don't think there was the set aside prayer then. I really don't, because I don't remember being introduced to the set aside prayer until BBA came out. So I would get on my knees, I would say the 3rd step prayer, and I would write. And then when I finished, I thought, I'm going to sit every day for an hour, just like I do at my 4th step. And I didn't. I did not. But I have since come into, that was 31 years ago, I've since come into a practice of sitting, of practicing. I have meditations I do, and that's my reminder to write my gratitudes. I have meditations I do in the morning because that's part of step 11. And that's part of, for me, when I get up in the morning, literally what I do is there's a prayer. I was raised Jewish. There's a prayer that I say immediately. It's something I've been saying since I was a child. And even on the times that I tried to not be Jewish, because like I tried to not be Jewish a lot, it's like trying to not be me, but that's what I did. I said that prayer, like those words were coming out of my mouth. They were just such a part of me. So I say that prayer, and then I say another prayer, and then I get on my knees, and with intention, I say the 3rd and the 7th step prayer, and I ask God to, divorce me from self-pity, self-seeking, and, obsessive motives. I ask God to remove my anxiety, to remove my fear. I ask God to show me who I should be, not necessarily what I should do. It's easy to figure out what to do in life, the path is always in front of you, but what to be quiet, to be loving, to be peaceful, to be kind, to be understanding, to be clear, to speak clearly, to say what I mean, to mean what I say, to not say it mean, right? Because like I could say I could do it all, but I could be such a not so great person about it. And that's not who I want to be today. So I'm going to share with you something that happened recently. Recently, I mean last week. So I had this amazing opportunity and I went to, I live in New Jersey, but I've lived everywhere. I've lived, not everywhere, but I've lived pretty much throughout Europe over the years, throughout Europe, and I lived in Israel for a very long time. And last 2 weeks ago, actually, I got on a plane and I flew to Portugal and took a bus to Spain with four other women, where we walked the last 115 kilometers. I like saying kilometers because it sounds better than miles, right? 115 kilometers sounds a lot better than 72 miles, right? You're like, oh my gosh, that woman is like crazy, right? So I walked 115 kilometers. I walked the French way. I walked the last 6 days of the Camino de Santiago, and it was amazing. It was, first of all, in utter and complete gratitude that I am so healthy and so fit that I can do these things. I feel like better than I did when I was 30. And I work on it. It doesn't happen overnight. I work on that. But I went with four other women. One of them was my college roommate, who I love dearly. We've been friends for 42 years. And we met the first day of college when I was drunk, and she lived with me the year I got sober. That woman is the same. And then one was a friend of hers. And then she had a friend from high school and another friend that her high school friend brought with her that was a full-blown crazy alcohol nuts. It was bad. And I don't really spend time with people who drink, which is really interesting. So every night they're drinking, and her friend from high school and this full-blown woman, alcoholic woman, they really had a problem with me, like really bad. And they had a problem with my not drinking. They had a problem with how I ate. They really, really had a problem with me, so much so that there was one night that I just said, look, I whispered to my friend, I love you, but I'm not doing this. And I excused myself and I went to another part of the restaurant and I ordered dinner. And I actually went on the spiritual cartel meeting last Saturday. And I listened to a meeting while I ate dinner. I had dinner with alcoholics who were sober and heard the solution. And I didn't make a big deal of it. And I want to tell you, I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything. I didn't tell them off. I didn't curse them out. Oh my God, I wanted to. And the reason why I didn't was because that's not who I want to be. And that's not who I believe God wants me to be. And because nothing good would have come of it. And it would have upset my friend. And it wouldn't have made me feel better, because when I act in a way that goes against the core of my being, when I act in a way, you know, that's, it says, if we have to determine which of two courses to take, we ask God for inspiration and intuitive thought or a decision. And I was praying this. I was like praying all the time. I called up one of the women I sponsored one of the days on the trip. And she's about 18 years. And she just said, well, what would you tell me? And she told me what I would tell her. And I was like, that's stupid advice. And so it's like, I can't believe you just told me all the things I told you, but it was really good. And she said, this is a hurting person, and just pray for their soul. They're really hurting. And I was able to do that. And I was able to just pray and have peace and like separate myself and keep my boundaries, which means for me, keeping my boundaries means I do what I need to do. It doesn't mean I expect you to do something. I think that word boundary is thrown around a lot in Alcoholics Anonymous. My setting a boundary doesn't mean I set a boundary and then you behave accordingly. My setting a boundary means this is my standard for behavior. And my standard for behavior is I'm not going to say something that's going to hurt you. I'm not going to say something that I'm going to have to make amends for later. I really don't want to do that. I'm not going to act in a way that is going to be without integrity. But I'm not going to put myself in a situation that is unhealthy and toxic and sick. And I left. I left nicely and I left. And it was so good. And I want to tell you, 10 years ago, there were not Zoom meetings round the clock. 10 years ago, 5 years ago, I would not have been able to go on a spiritual cartel meeting to have my dinner in this. I don't even know where we were. We were somewhere on the Camino in Spain in this kind of hostely type of hotel, restaurant. I really don't, I don't remember the name of it. It was our last stop before Santiago. But I was just able to just be, be an example of sobriety, and not put myself in a position that was really uncomfortable, and not put myself in a position like it talks about in step 3. We found that, invariably found that at some point in the past, we put ourselves in a position to be hurt. I didn't have to put myself in a position to be hurt or give anyone else power. And then it says, the result of determining which of the two courses to take, of asking God for inspiration and intuitive thought or decision, is we relax and take it easy. And we are often surprised how the right answer comes after we have tried this for a while. I know when it's the right answer. I'm an anxious person. I am a really anxious person. And by that, I mean, like, I get like physical anxiety, like my heart will race, or I'll get that like weird feeling in the pit of my stomach. And I know when it is the right course of action or the intuitive thought, because I don't have that. What I have is peace. What I have is just peace and calmness, and like this like oneness. And it's hard to explain, but I really feel it, you know. And I'm going to share a couple of other things that happened, because last week was really powerful. My mother is my mother's actually in these rooms, not this room particularly, but my mom had 25 years in June. She's really special. She's really sweet. She's 83 years old. And I 12-stepped her by accident. Well, I didn't expect to 12-step her. I just never thought she was going to change. And then I did the steps, and then I made amends to her. And then 5 years after I made amends to her, she said, and I quote, "Please tell me what you do, because my way isn't working anymore." And that was on June 2nd, 1999. And her date's June 3rd, 1999. I was living in Greece at the time, and I was working on cruise ships. And I came back to visit them a year later in 2000 for my dad's 60th birthday. And my mom and I went to a meeting, and she shared, a year ago, 36 years ago, I gave my daughter life, and a year ago, she turned around and gave it back to me. Right? Like, who could write that story? You know, my mom's also a Holocaust survivor, and she's very worried about my trip. And I wear a few necklaces, and she was very worried about my necklaces. And she was like, "Please wear your necklaces inside. It's not safe. It's not safe." And I'm like, I'm loud and proud. I'm gonna do me. But I didn't do that, because it really upset her. And yeah, she can't see what I'm doing walking in the middle of the mountains of Spain. She can't see. But I wore them inside because I told her I would. And I, you know, part of how I live my life, and part of my step 11 is doing what I say I'm gonna do, you know? So I wore them inside. And there was this one day at the very end, we ran into a group of Italians from Italy, and I speak a little Italian. I used to live there. I used to speak it well. I speak a little Italian. And there's this woman, and she was listening to this Jewish prayer, and I spoke to her, and she wasn't Jewish, but she was listening to this Jewish prayer. And so, and on her phone, not on her headphone, I was listening to things, and like, you're in my ear now. I was listening to things in my ear the whole way. Nobody knew what I was listening to. And it was okay. It was like my personal, you know, pilgrimage with God. And then we put on like all this other music that I had. I put it on my phone, and I walked with this woman on the Camino. She didn't know any Hebrew, and she was singing all the words with me. And we walked, and we were like listening to these prayers and this song. And it was one of the most amazing connections that I have ever had in my life. And I've had a lot of connections. It was just random. I know her first name. I have a picture of us. God knows if we'll ever be connected again, but it was just so beautiful. And that was the only time that I wore my necklaces out on Camino, because I wanted to show her, you know, I have necklaces for a whole bunch of things, some of which are outside issues. So I'm so grateful that when I get quiet, God's voice gets loud. And when I get loud, God's voice, it gets really, really, really quiet. And I can't hear it. And I didn't know that for a really, really long time. At the end of this particular reading, it says we usually conclude our meditation with a prayer that we be shown all through the day what our next step is, especially asking for freedom from damaging self-will. And I'm just going to take it a step further in the big book on the next page at the bottom, on page 87. It gives us direction for our day. As we go through the day, we pause when agitated or doubtful. I have many times during the day, I have more times when I'm doubtful than I'm agitated, but I definitely have times when I'm agitated. And when I worked the steps, I had a sponsor who had me look up words. So an agitator is this thing on a washing machine when it has that like round cone in it and it goes like this. So that is agitated. And I know that every single person in this room has felt that, right? Ask, we pause when agitated and ask for the right thought or action. That's the first thing we do. The second thing we do is we constantly remind ourselves we are no longer running the show, which I found out in step 3. We humbly say to ourselves many times each day, thy will be done. I don't care who you believe in. I don't care what your God is. It has to be someone else's will other than mine if my day is going to be peaceful. We are then much less in much less danger of excitement, fear, anger, worry, self-pity, or foolish decisions. Now, these were the things that I based my life on, you know. I mean, I remember I'm trying to think how old I was. I think I must have been around 36. I was on a ship and we were in Copenhagen, and I went to this place called Tivoli Gardens, which is an amusement park. Tivoli spelled backwards as I love it. And they had this ride called the Golden Tier, the Golden Tower. And it went up and it just rocked, like, I don't know, 10,000 meters, 10,000 feet. I don't remember what it was, over Copenhagen. It was beautiful. And you just saw the city and the lights. And then it went down, and then it went up, and then it went down, and then it went up, and then it went all the way down. And then I got off, and then I threw up, and then I went back on it. Sober. I was like 15 years sober. That is who I am without alcohol, without recovery. You know, I went back on it. We become much more efficient. It talks about in step 10 that we grow in understanding and effectiveness. We do not tire so easily, for we are not burning up energy foolishly as we did when we were trying to arrange life to suit ourselves. It works, it really does. We alcoholics are undisciplined, so we let God discipline us in the simple way we have just outlined. I want to reiterate that because I recently had a conversation with a sponsee who's a fairly new sponsee who came from another sponsor, and they had all these ideas about discipline, and you have to do this and this, and you have to, if somebody calls you 5 minutes late, you don't answer. If they're talking to you in a certain way, you hang up. I'm like, I don't do any of that. I don't do any of that. That's not my job. You know, my job is to be understanding and effective and loving. That is my job. And to give the directions for how to work the steps, and maybe a few other little related things. Like I have a gratitude thing, so I ask people to write gratitudes and meetings. I don't tell people how to live their life. That's not what it says. The way God disciplines us is by saying, thy will be done. Please show me. That's what this is. Because I look at discipline as this really terrible thing. I don't like that word. That word like brings up like all sorts of like I get that feeling in the gut of my stomach, you know. So I like to think I let God love me in this simple way. I let God love me by showing me that I'm not alone. I don't know why now I want to cry, but that I'm not alone. I'm not running the show, and that I am safe and protected, and that everything is okay, and that there are going to be the people who are going to be good, who are going to come. And you know, just because we're in Alcoholics Anonymous doesn't mean that everybody is okay. That's really true. And the bigger that we get, the more room there is for stuff. And I have learned to walk away, even from people in the rooms who aren't healthy for me. You know, and yeah, I've been around a long time. So the longer you're around, the more opportunity you have to find that. But what I focus on is what I do. You know, what what I do. And I'm gonna read something and then I'm gonna end because I don't think I have a whole lot more. But I want to read something that I really like. And it's in the third edition, and I'm not going to get up, so I'm looking for it online really fast. And it's something I really love. And oh, there it is. And I may have to wing it. I'm gonna wing it. It's on page 542 of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous in the third edition, and the story He Who Loses His Life. And it says something along the lines of AA is a philosophy of all of the AA is a conglomerate or something of all the philosophy I've ever learned, all of the good things I've ever learned, all of it based on love. I've learned that there is only one law, the law of love, and there are only two sins. The first is to get in the way of another human being's growth, and the second is to get in the way of my own. That's completely paraphrased, but it really is about love, and it's not even about my love. You know, if I'm concluding my period of meditation, you know, I'm asking God to show me how I can love what I had to do with that woman who I really didn't like, because I didn't like how she treated me, because I didn't like how she acted, because I didn't like being around her drinking all the wine, but mostly I just didn't like that she was not nice to me. I had to love her more. And that's really hard, you know. It's really easy. You know, it's really easy to love my nieces who send me messages every day and call me Aunt Robi the Fabulous. I also buy them iPhones. But that aside, it's really easy to love the people who are easy to love. It's the people who are hard to love. And I can love them without putting myself in their line of fire, you know, and I've learned that, you know, and at the end of this reading that I chose, you know, we ask to be shown throughout the day what our next step is, asking especially for freedom from damaging self-will. I've learned that when I am able to extend love to others, I'm able to love myself. And I didn't, I hated myself. And I don't. I think very well of myself. I don't think, you know, like well, yeah, maybe I do think I'm everything and all that, but only sometimes, no. Seriously, I'm comfortable in my own skin today. I have hit and I continue to hit the fourth dimension of existence, of which I had not even dreamed. And for me, those are two things. I'm comfortable in my own skin and I'm able to be in the present moment. The last thing I'll share is that one of the things that came up in my gratitudes while I was away was I'm so grateful today that I use travel as a way to enhance my life, but not as a way to escape my life. I used to use travel as a way to escape my life sober. I've been sober my entire adult life. And I had to get away. I was so happy to come home. I was so happy to see my mom. I was really happy to see, I have two kitties. I think you saw both of them. I was really happy to see my fur babies. I was really happy to be in my house and in the little quiet life that, you know, from working on cruise ships and being somewhere every day to living in this little town in New Jersey, 3 miles from my mom. I've never been happier and more peaceful. And I continue to just do this thing, you know, chop wood, carry water, 1 foot at a time, 1 day at a time. I continue to do these things every day, you know, and I'm eternally grateful. So, Young, thank you for asking me to speak. Thank you, everybody, for being here and for listening. And I can't wait to hear back from you.